Good afternoon and welcome to Right Now here on WILI 95.3 FM, 1400 AM. My name is Chris Reddy. This is our Thursday, February 5th episode of Right Now. I have two guests in studio with me this afternoon. The first one is a returning guest, student at ECSU. He is the president of the College Republicans. He is the public relations officer for 180 Christian Fellowship, and he is the presumptive president of the Young Americans for Freedom chapter at Eastern. We have with us a returning guest, Wyatt Poehler. Thank you for being here, Wyatt.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Second guest is another return visitor to the show of Right Now, and this is our Congressional District 2 candidate, George Austin. Thanks for being on the show, George.
Howdy.
So we have a couple things that we're going to talk about today, but before we start, we do want to give Wyatt an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what's going on. He was here last semester as a student in Eastern, presenting some of the things that were happening up at the campus here in Windham. And we want to give you an opportunity to not only tell us about what is happening up there, but also I know there's an event that is coming up in March.
Yes.
That is very significant that you would like to be able to present to our listening audience. Do you want to take it away and tell us a little bit about not only what's going on for this semester up at Eastern, but also your event coming up at the beginning of March?
Yeah, sure. So right now we're currently working on getting our Young Americans for Freedom chapter started up on campus. We're in the bureaucratic stage right now where we're trying to get through the red tape of the campus. But upcoming in March, on March 3rd, we are hosting a man named Daniel DiMartino on our campus. He was born and raised in socialist Venezuela. When he graduated high school, he escaped the country and fled to the United States. And now he's an economist working out of Manhattan and a PhD candidate at Columbia University in economics. We have like 150 seats. It's first come, first serve, but students do get priority seats.
Okay, excellent. And if people want to attend this event, is there some place that they can reach out to be able to show up, or is it simply to show up at the door on March 3rd?
It'd be easier to just email us first to let us know that you might be attending. You can email us actually at Republicans, so REP, trying to think of how to spell Republicans, Republicans at my.easternct.edu. You can reach out to us there.
Great. And what type of things do you think he's going to be talking about? Is it going to be mostly about his experiences in Venezuela and then immigrating to the United States? Or do you think this is more going to be about the current political environment with Venezuela and the United States and his kind of perspective on how this is going to affect U.S. and Venezuela relations? Like, what type of expectations are you looking for from this conversation with him?
It's going to be a mix.
Okay.
So basically, it's going to be it's going to be a Young Americans event,
Okay.
how they run all their events. So he's just going to go up there and give a speech and then open up for Q&A.
Excellent.
But we're looking at his speech is going to be about a mix of things. His experiences growing up in socialist Venezuela, how socialism has affected Venezuela, and then he is going to pivot into the current events, such as the United States capturing Maduro.
Great. So now, turning to our other guest, George, a couple weeks ago, almost a month ago now, we attended an event here in Windham, and we got a chance to speak to a number of Venezuelan residents.
Was that a month ago?
Pretty close, right?
Maybe.
Three Kings Day. We're almost 4 weeks now, because that was
Okay.
the beginning of January.
Damn. Where's the time go?
Exactly. Well, you've been a busy guy, so I imagine time's flying for you, because you are everywhere.
I thought it
in
was
the past
September.
month, but
I thought it was still September. So yeah, it's Three Kings.
yeah. So at that event, we had an opportunity to interact with a number of people who were first-generation immigrants from Venezuela who talked to us about some of their experiences here. Can you relate a little bit to the listening audience about what happened that day and some of the feedback that you got and how the sentiment is to the United States government's handling of the situation in Venezuela and specifically the capture of Maduro?
Well, there were some first generations, that's for sure, but I believe the ladies that we are both thinking of were actually not first generation, but actual immigrants. They had come from Venezuela directly. They were born and raised there, and they were ecstatic. They couldn't put into, well, they tried to put it into, they put it into enough words. Let's put it that way. They were not short-winded in their explanations of how they were elated, for lack of a better term, in terms of being relieved that their friends and family finally had a better future to look forward to. Wow, say that 5 times fast. And they were, it was, even though they even both, I remember them very, very, very distinctly saying, well, we're not really fans of Trump per se, but now with this action, it shows a different side. They actually, a lot of the world, a lot of the nations abroad, he has shown, if you can believe this, I can, but I'm sure many can't. He has shown a new side of his humanity, and they find this to be a humanitarian effort. Despite what legacy media tells you, because for a myriad of reasons, I'm having trouble trying to put their words into English, because frankly, there were so many of them. Mm-hmm. But they were very. These were
lengthy
happy
conversations.
They were
these
very
were
lengthy.
Telling us stories about family members that were oppressed by the Maduro regime, and even the Chavez regime before that.
That's true. Oh yeah, that's right. The first one, her name was Miriam. She was telling us that she had 2 uncles just disappear under Chavez, and they were nobodies. They were just made examples of. Mm-hmm. They were. It's not like they were some sort of a dissident. Like for example, in Russia, if you were a journalist speaking out against a certain president, you would be disappeared. In this case, they were just nobodies. They just felt whoever they is, mm-hmm. Chavez and the regime just felt like they needed to make an example of some people, and this poor lady lost 2 uncles, gone in the wind. Mm-hmm. And then under Maduro, I think they had begun to what's the word I'm looking for? Is it appropriated or is it annexed? When a government nationalizes funds and essentially confiscates them, either
appropriation.
Yeah. So that their funds and assets were appropriated and essentially tossed out of their houses, and which were sold for whatever, and they were left to fend for themselves.
And these are clearly stories that we're not hearing the mainstream media portray from people who are here as parts of our community. So I think that's significant and very important. I want to remind everybody that if you have any interest in listening to any of the previous episodes of Right Now, you can tune to WILI.com, and you can scroll down from the podcasts menu. Look for Right Now. You can listen to any of our previous episodes there. We are also available on YouTube. There is a video that is being recorded in studio of all of our episodes. It's available there. You can tune in at any time. I also want to thank Wyndham Industries, one of our sponsors, building strong foundations for tomorrow. We have 2 guests in studio right now. Wyatt Poehler, who's from Eastern Connecticut State University, very involved with the president of the College Republicans, and also the presumptive president of the Young Americans for Freedom chapters up at Eastern. We are making very good inroads in both Eastern and UConn in getting some of this progressive, conservative messaging out there, and it's really important that we try and bring some of these young conservatives to our show here to be able to help us to not only bridge that gap between generations, but also to show that there are young people who are really interested in what is going on in Connecticut today. So thank you, Wyatt, for being here today. One of the first things that I want to talk about, this is something that I brought up on Mike's show on Monday. I gave a little bit of preview for this. We've had 2 significant things that have happened this week. One is that the state legislature has started their short session for the 2026 fiscal year. But also, something was released, and I previewed this on Monday on Mike's show, Unfiltered, on Monday. And this had to do with the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative and a 3rd program review that was completed in October of 2025. I'll say results of this 3rd program review are just starting to become apparent. One thing, if I take you back to 2024, that is significant here is that the summer of 2024, we had a huge awareness that was recognized by Connecticut electrical ratepayers in the form of the public benefits charge suddenly being a separate line item on our electric bills. And this caused an uproar. People were all of a sudden saying, what is this? Who are we paying? What are we paying for? What are these programs that are part of this public benefits charge? And now we've gotten some answers. We've heard everything from, well, this is only a temporary thing. It's going to end in May of 2025. We found out that was a big lie. That didn't change. Nothing changed. It didn't go down. We've now bonded hundreds of millions of dollars to the state budget. We are paying interest on that now over time to pay down this public benefits charge. A couple of weeks ago, I presented information about a new approved, PURA-approved payment for reimbursement to a nonprofit to the tune of $200,000 that's now on our public benefits charge that I have very questionable concerns about the legitimacy of whether ratepayers should be funding this. With the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, this was something that we entered into really 20 plus years ago. And it was a number of steps that the state of Connecticut took legislatively that brought us into this. But this, unlike the public benefits charge, is a form of taxation that you will never see line itemized on your electric bill. This is going to be hidden in your supply portion of the bill. There will be no delineation as to what this amount is and what your contribution is to it. We can all agree that decreasing carbon dioxide emissions is important. We can all agree this is something that we should be looking towards in the future.
Oh?
Do you want to comment on this, George?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't disagree empirically, but my question is this. Who's the observer?
Okay.
I'm always asking
I see
who's
where you're
the
going.
observer.
Yep.
So let's big picture this. Let's actually speak in geological terms, where seconds equal millennia. Okay, If you're talking about geological terms, we should be, if we are to observe history and believe that our numbers are hyper accurate, we should be amidst a new ice age because everything is cyclical. We are not. Now, granted, then that begs another question: who is the observer when you say something is better or worse? The only point I'm trying to make is, I'm not sure that looking at things from the standpoint of just carbon emissions alone, saying more bad and less good, on that single statistic is necessarily valid, and I don't believe that follows scientific method. I am not here trying to say I think we need to pump more, we need to make our new business model pumping CO2 in the upper atmosphere. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I just want to know what other measures are going to accompany it, and where is the other data that would suggest that would have the desired effect.
And that is absolutely a valid question to
That's
ask.
all.
And I agree with you. And I agree with you 100% there. What I'm trying to get at is that we all have concerns about the environment. We all have concerns about the pollutants that we're putting out there.
We are stewards of the earth.
Yes, absolutely. But should we be legislatively regulating pass-through taxations that go directly to a ratepayer now in the form of a hidden tax underneath the supply portion of your electric bill because of a regional greenhouse gas initiative that was entered into under something that was really unconstitutional? Because isn't really Section 4 of the Constitution one thing that helps prevent states from grouping together and now saying, hey, we have more power collectively than individually?
Could one say that that's to keep the union from unionizing?
Here we're getting deep now. We're diving deep into the rabbit hole.
So I'll tell you what. I got a better one. Okay. I want to ask you this. We presumably, as a state, as a capital General Assembly, have committed to, just to put 1,000 words into 5, to bending knee to the green of religion.
Sure.
I think that's a fair assessment of the situation. Let me ask you this. Coming here this afternoon from Hartford area, I'm passing. I'm on 384.
Yep.
And you got a. Oh, man, I really don't want to. I really don't. Well, I mean, they got the names on. They got their company name on the damn trucks. It's They got a tree service. They got a tree service just mowing down all the trees in the median.
Yep.
Okay, and that's just what just happened today. I've been working. For those who don't know or don't remember or don't care, I'm a contractor. I've been building homes up and down the shore. So I've been for almost at least 3/4 of the past 4 years. I've been traveling up and down Route 2 and up and down 395, and that has been another hodgepodge of distinctive tree care, just mowing down trees on the side of 395. I know because I'm sitting in traffic on these things all the time,
Yeah.
and so I just want to know, how is that green? As a matter of fact, it is the antithesis of green because trees are green and they're cutting it down. And I don't want to hear that it's from a maintenance standpoint because you could prune if you were thus committed to maintaining levels of green for air quotes, right? Greenness, greety for lack of a better term. Then I ask you, why are they not doing this? Why are they just wholesale mowing down trees? That's not green. Goes along with the same thing. I know this has nothing to do with the tax part, but just as a basis, right? So these are I think the more important question is not about the constitutionality of the taxes. I want to know why these things were implemented in the first place. Why are we going along with these things? Why are we deforesting acres to put on solar farms?
That's what I was just going to bring up.
That makes no sense. That is not green. If you want to tell me that we need to conserve and be efficient, that's good business. I'm all for it. More green in nature equals more greenbacks in my wallet. All good.
Yep.
All right. But it's not. It is inconsistent to mow down trees which give us oxygen. And by the way, speaking in terms of our solar system, trees are 1,000 times more rare than diamonds. And yet we're mowing down trees like it's going out of style because that's green. It is not green, sir. I submit to you that the green movement is the most anti-green thing going on.
That's what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to finish this conversation up. We have a couple more minutes before the bottom of the hour. I want to tell you how Connecticut came into this because this is important as to how we can get out of this. We can. Connecticut is one of the founding members of the RGGI. This goes back to 2003, 2005, the initial, what I'll call, negotiation period, where we entered into a memorandum of understanding with Delaware, Maine, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Vermont, to establish this regional greenhouse gas initiative to decrease CO2 emissions. Other states joined in afterwards. One of the last ones to join was Pennsylvania, but this is significant because Pennsylvania actually just exited the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative as of January 2026 because of a court ruling decision that this absolutely was a source of revenue, a tax without legislative insight. The unfortunate thing is that Connecticut does not fall under that same legal standard because we have actually legislated changes to the Connecticut General Statutes, and it's particularly Public Act 07242 that requires the state to participate in this regional greenhouse gas initiative. The simple answer that I want to make sure that people are aware of is that the costs associated are not going to be absorbed by the utility company. The way that this greenhouse gas initiative works is that your CO2 emissions are measured and you are buying at an auction, a quarterly auction, excess CO2 emissions that you are paying for. That money is supposed to go back into green initiatives.
Like mowing down trees?
Yeah. However, the problem with this cap and trade program is that Eversource is never going to absorb that cost. They're going to pass that on in the supply portion of your bill right on to the ratepayer. That is another form of taxation, another place where Connecticut Democrats are reaching into your pocket and taking money, this time in the form of your electric bill. Any electrical producer of 25 megawatts or more is required to participate in this program. We have initiated. The way that Pennsylvania got out of this was that at the time, prior to Governor Shapiro, and I believe it was Governor Wolf, made an executive decision to enter into this regional greenhouse gas initiative. And the difference between Pennsylvania and Connecticut is that Connecticut in 2009 joined something that was called a model. It was basically the model standard for how legislations should forward proposed bills so that they were required to be part of this RGGI. While Pennsylvania in 2025, their court recognized this was an improper taxation and said that the state legislature could remove themselves from the regional greenhouse gas initiative, Connecticut doesn't have that option. So no matter what, we are going to see our electrical bills rise because of this third program review that just resulted at the end of the year last year. There's no way around it. You add on top of this public benefits charges, we are in a bad situation where our electric bills are going to continue to rise. And there's only a few things that we can do that are actually going to make a difference and are going to change this as we go forward.
And how about that giant wind farm that they're trying to build into Sound on the Connecticut side?
We talked about this
Aren't
a
they
couple
doing
months
it?
ago.
Oh, did you?
They're doing it.
They are. It was halted for a short period of time by the federal government, but it has come up. But there's its own issues with that because there was development of a pier that had to occur before that could happen. That money, the money for that skyrocketed over a period of like 2 years and almost doubled in costs, and nobody can explain why that happened. So there are all sorts of issues with these programs.
Because it's the taxpayer credit card.
And
You
know
can
they
just
still have
continue
those?
charging on it.
They still
So-
have those giant things in the London Bay.
Yeah,
They're still there.
Yep.
They're still there. I drive by them.
They're
We'll-
not biodegradable, dude. They ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have to find
Staying
some place
there.
to bury those in
They ain't
20
going
years,
nowhere,
15,
dude.
20 years. Yep. Right at the end of our segment here, I just want to come up with a couple of solutions that we have, and I want you to add on to this, okay, George?
Hit me.
First, I think one of the most significant things we could do is we could separate PURA from DEEP. They have two vastly different roles and responsibilities as state agencies. PURA, as a quasi-judicial regulatory board, should be separate from DEEP. Second, we need to redesign the electric bills. They have to reflect only two charges, supply and distribution. We need to eliminate transmission. We need to eliminate public benefits. That accounts for 25% of your bill right there that we could be eliminated right off the top. All those public benefit costs should be appropriated by the state legislature with vetting, transparency, and public input throughout that budgeting process. We need to limit future power purchase agreements to 150% over the wholesale market price of electricity. As it stands, we can't have any more of these programs where we're spending 300, 400 times or 300 to 400% more than the wholesale market value of electricity.
I disagree with that one, sir.
Okay.
Not 150. Just have it be market rate.
Yeah,
End of
100.
story. Why give ourselves a margin of error? If we give them the margin of error, it'll just be abused.
Because in New England, we do have some unexpected costs. We could have a particularly harsh winter where costs are excessive.
All right. Well,
And-
then I must have missed something there. Okay.
All right. Another thing is to reclassify Class 1 renewables to include nuclear, alternative forms of nuclear, and all forms of hydroelectric, and make those options available to Connecticut. We can't have a closed market for those things anymore. Study ways to increase natural gas to New England because as we transfer to renewable energy sources, that has to be a part of it. We can't simply cut it out. Okay? And this is the thing that I really am concerned about with these regional gas initiatives and other things is that we have to have a publication of the standardized annual cost and performance reports across all of these major energy policies. We need to see what ratepayers are paying for, just like we do if this was something that was legislatively held. Anything else you want to add on to there as energy policy?
I'll tell you something that we can do from DC is we need to get FERC involved, and we need to draft up some sort of rules, some sort of framework rather, that will address all these data centers that are going to be popping up and
Sure.
producing intense, crazy baseline draws.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do one of two things. Oh no, honestly, the only pragmatic thing to do is to make them to be responsible to produce their own generation. End of story.
They have to absorb some of that cost. If they want us to provide our infrastructure, ratepayers paying for improved infrastructure
Agreed.
for AI and data centers.
Well, because otherwise it's going
to,
or they're going to have to come up with some sort of empirical way to prove that they will not affect the base load.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I'll sooner find a unicorn flying around than that being possible.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. You have been listening to Right Now here on 95.3 FM WILI. Welcome back to Right Now on 95.3 FM, 1400 AM WILI. I am Chris Reddy. I have in studio with me two guests this afternoon. First one is Eastern Connecticut State University student Wyatt Poehler, who is the president of the College Republicans. He is also the public relations for 180 Christian Fellowship and has been a previous guest on our show, contributing to some of the conservative talk here on Right Now. I also have in studio with me Congressional District 2 candidate George Austin, who has also been a previous guest. We have been talking in the first portion of our show about I'm going to say we spent a lot of time talking about energy and
Trees.
We did talk about renewable energy sources. We're going to take a very different path for the second segment here. And this one I wanted to bring up because we did have some recent, very significant arrests that were made by the Department of Justice in the state of Connecticut. And I want to provide a little bit of context as to not only what has happened historically in the way of some of the legislature that has been presented for vote by Democrats in Connecticut, but also some of the amendments that have been made over the past few years to the Trust Act, which is what we're going to be discussing. We're going to talk about some of the implications of this and also some of the cases that have come up in the past few months to talk about some of the criminal illegal immigrants that we have kind of had come to Connecticut because of the Trust Act. And I want to preface this by saying that this is by no means any indication that we're saying this is the majority of immigrants. There are literally thousands of people that are in our community that are here who want a better life. They want a better situation for themselves, their family, their children. There's no, at all, point in trying to say that that's not the majority of people. But when we are not careful and when we legislate things that allow criminals to not be recognized by authorities, and when we have situations like I'm going to present in the next few minutes about cases where arrests have been made from very violent offenders in Connecticut, and we have to look at the fact that these people have generally established residency here in Connecticut for a number of years prior to being captured, that we're not doing a good job of what the government's first and fundamental responsibility is in providing safety to the constituents and providing safety to the residents of the state. If we look back to the Trust Act as it was first put into place, the justification was we don't want to prevent the immigrant communities from asking for assistance from law enforcement, from first responders, for fear that someone is going to say something and that these people are going to be recognized for their legal status as immigrants in the country. That's something I think we can support. We can say we don't want people who are here for a good purpose and who want to contribute and who want to be productive members of American society to be able to fulfill that. You are the exact example of this in your family as being immigrants who worked hard and you succeeded. You have the American dream. You are a business owner. You have established yourself in the community. I know, but your family, like,
Right? Yeah.
these are things that people are seeing as opportunities, and we should be encouraging. Like, we all want this. We want people to contribute to our society. What we don't want is a criminal element that's coming in and then being protected by sanctuary policies. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. One of the significant things that happened in 2021 was that Connecticut reclassified a numerous number of misdemeanors, some of them including violent offenses. And in reclassifying them, the maximum sentence was decreased from 1 year to 364 days. What is the significance
Holy cow.
in saying that we're going to
Crazy
decrease
change.
maximum sentence prison from 1 year to 364 days? Can you imagine there's any significance of that one day?
No.
I know there is. I'm not putting
There is.
I'm not
It's
putting
because according to federal law, crimes that carry a sentence of a year or more are deportable offenses. So now Connecticut makes a specific legislative change to decrease maximum sentences by 1 day to bypass this federal law, which says at 1 year with a violent offense, we can look at this and say this is potentially deportable.
Is that for like immigrants who came in legally as well?
So that's a good question.
It must.
Right?
It is.
It must be.
But
It has to be.
I think that the specific reasoning for this was because of the undocumented immigrants that were being picked up for lesser crimes, but then being deported because of them. Okay? The thing that I want to bring up about this is that when you have sanctuary policies that protect individuals from these minor crimes, you're almost allowing more significant crimes to go along with that. You're going to have a progression of this, and you're going to see where it goes back to those very simple ideas of community policing, where you take care of cleaning up some of the simpler, smaller crimes, and you decrease the now more extensive and more significant crimes, because many of these crimes are being committed by the same people. Okay? Now, within the past couple of weeks, there's been a couple of very significant Department of Justice arrests. And I just want to highlight these because these are some of the people that are being taken off the streets of Connecticut. January 30th, 2026, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and all these are readily available on the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Connecticut. The Homeland Security Task Force investigating drug and gun trafficking arrested 6 individuals, 3 of them from Waterbury, 1 from Hamden, 1 from New York, 1 from New Jersey, all tied to a Dominican Republic gang.
Oh, I did hear about that.
Whose leader, still remaining in the Dominican Republic, in text messages, claimed to be able to order violence in the United States from the Dominican Republic. This task force, when they arrested these 6 individuals, had made 30 controlled purchases totaling over 1 kilogram of fentanyl, 1/4 kilo of methamphetamine, and 17 stolen firearms. Lab analysis also showed this fentanyl is now being mixed with a synthetic benzodiazepine. So now not only do you have a narcotic that we have to worry about people having Narcan, the narcotic antagonist, available to be able to use as an antidote for a poisoning from a narcotic or an opioid. But now we've added a benzo, which is a completely separate class of, again, synthetic, this time benzodiazepine, similar to Valium or Ativan. We're compounding the problems that we're having here. We're compounding these. These are very serious drugs that are being involved in these things. And not only was this a drug and gun trafficking gang, beyond these 15 indictments for drug and gun trafficking, One of the defendants had a separate indictment because investigators, in going through his phone, found a hidden file under the encrypted messaging service Telegram that contained videos and images of child pornography.
Nice.
So we're not talking about like people who we want in our communities being here. Great job getting them off the streets, but why are they here in the first place? Right? Let's talk about a couple more of these. Actually, I want to take a step back and I want to give you a 2-year historical. I'm going to try and keep these all relatively contemporary, but I do want to take a step back because this was a case that I think a lot of people have forgotten about and was absolutely disgusting. And this goes back to January 2023, 3 years ago this month. Cummings Park, Stamford. Municipal Park. What do they discover? Buried in the park in a shallow grave, but the body of a 2-year-old boy. This 2-year-old boy, it turns out, died from blunt force trauma to the head. We now take a step back in this story, and it turns out that his father was not only convicted less than a year and a half before to a 16-month prison sentence for breaking the arm of this child. He then gets released early, gets back into the household with this child, murders him, buries him in a shallow grave. But now we find out that the Child Advocate's Office does an investigation into this and finds complete and utter failure in DCF and the family court system in providing safety for this child. Once again, we have a situation where both of these parents have entered this country illegally and now committed a very horrible, heinous crime. That could happen anywhere.
Against an American citizen.
Yes.
Just
Another one. I will continue with this here. I mentioned this in a prior episode. We have a man who was arrested in June of 2025. He was on the most wanted list from the country of Ecuador because he murdered someone in 2011, fled the country, came across the border, ended up in Connecticut, 2,500 miles away from where he crossed the border into the United States, residing under an alias in Oxford, Connecticut. Most wanted man from Ecuador. I will tell you of a couple other cases, and this is not isolated to just certain populations. I want to tell you about a case from an immigrant from Romania that occurred in Hartford. This guy started off in California, started his fraud there, and then came to Connecticut because he figured that Connecticut was a better opportunity for him to commit this fraud. This starts in 2021 when he decided that he was going to unlawfully use an access device to get to people's EBT cards and scam them out of state taxpayer money. Arrested, convicted, sent back to Romania. He comes back to Connecticut within 8 months and now is convicted of scamming people with their ATM cards. So now he's moved from EBT transaction scamming to ATM card scamming. And this is someone who we deported back to Romania, and he comes back to Connecticut within 8 months.
So this guy came to Connecticut from California, and then he came back to Connecticut from Romania. What that tells me is that Connecticut is most certainly the land of opportunity for criminals.
Oh, it gets better. There's even more. I want to tell you about this one. This guy, this 38-year-old, originally from Guatemala, crossed into Arizona in 2006. He was caught, he was deported, he was told not to return for 5 years. He re-enters in 2007, and in 2008, in August, was arrested in New York, indicted and convicted in New York Superior Court for a murder for hire racket. Okay? He spends 87 months in federal prison, is deported in 2013, July of 2019, he re-enters through Arizona. For the third time is deported. And then in January of 2026, he's arrested in Waterbury, Connecticut for criminal trespassing in the first degree, breach of peace in the second degree, released from Waterbury police custody, and ICE had to go and pick him up and find him in Waterbury on January 12th. You can't tell me that as these sanctuary state policies, which Connecticut Democrats are going to deny to the end, that these policies are not encouraging a place for people to come to when they are literally traveling from the New Mexico-Arizona border to Connecticut specifically for the intent of causing criminal activity here. Why are we jumping 2,500 miles except for the fact that we have laws that allow these people to have a sanctuary here?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like I said, it's the land of opportunity for all those who want to do wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and this list goes on. This list goes on and on. I can go through another
Please don't.
20 examples.
I'm all set. I'm all set. Please don't.
And then Governor Lamont takes to the State of the State the other day and says, and I'm quoting here, this is a quote from the address.
Oh, yeah.
Connecticut still stands for life, liberty, and opportunity for all. In every town, people of every background come together under one flag and one promise. That is the Connecticut I love and will always fight for.
Mm-hmm.
So we're fighting for the continuation of crime on our streets because we don't want to clean them.
And people that
Yeah.
are criminals who
I love it.
are here illegally.
So here's the problem, guys. And I'm not going to acquiesce any kind of sense of moral high ground on this issue. Because it's not a question of morality. At least I don't think it begins as one. I have said many a time when I'm asked, don't you think it's hypocritical, your family being from Mexico and you work in construction, blah, blah, blah. They like to qualify the reason for their question, then to state the question. Don't you think it's hypocritical or you're maybe betraying your people, air quotes, or whatever, to take such a harsh stance on immigration? And I say no, because it's really, really simple. Just a moment ago, yourself, one Chris Reddy, just mentioned that we want people here who are going to work and contribute, who are here for the right reasons, but you did not qualify that they must be here legally. Let's put it this way. If someone comes here illegally with the cure for cancer in their pocket, well, that's great. I'm very happy for them. But they still broke a law being here, period. I hear arguments about about people being separated from their families. Anyone in this room, myself included, anyone could be arrested for any multitude of crimes and be separated, maybe even wrongly convicted, and be separated from your family. There is no outrage. There is no organized, well-funded protest to admonish the said separation from your family. Okay? In this case, angels, although they may be, coming here illegally, by definition, is a crime. And once we start inserting shades of gray into it, saying, oh, well, this is... And of course, don't get me wrong, there are shades of gray of all crimes. That's why we have things in the first degree, second degree, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
No problem, because that really speaks to intent and also factors in consequences.
Sure.
But they're all still punishable by law. And we cannot be rewarding by law any crime whatsoever. Because what does that do? It sends the wrong message. It sends the wrong... Look, I got into a lot of trouble as a kid because my dad wasn't around and my mom was very lenient. The adage, spare the rod, spoil the kid, is most certainly a thing. And, people like to say that we're all one happy family. Okay, then let's discuss this in terms of family. The absence of consequences to wrongdoing will only incite and encourage further escalation until consequences are finally found. People will push until they are pushed back against. It is human nature. Not everyone, but enough. Now, with that said, the only coincidentally, the only real way to address this is to follow the law, because the law eliminates shades of gray. And now, granted, is our immigration system perfect? By no means.
Of course not. No,
we have a million errors in it. I have walked through that valley of the shadow of death. My older son had to wait in Mexico 2 years on paperwork after his mother was here. We can go on and on with anecdotal examples, but this needs to be addressed in a cold, calculated, fair way, meaning that, yes, I am for a hierarchy of priorities. Obviously, heinous criminals first, but we cannot say, all right, this crime merits deportation in conjunction with the crime of being here illegally, but then another crime in conjunction with the first crime of being here illegally does not merit deportation. Picking and choosing in that fashion is that's not the practice of law. That's picking favorites, and that is not justice. That is not equitable, to use a term from the other side. That is not what Lady Liberty stands for.
And I think that's the point that I was trying to make with that change from a year maximum sentence is 364 days, is that they're picking and choosing who these laws should apply to. I'll tell you, George, you probably know this about me. My stepmother, my stepsister were born in Beijing, China, and had an extremely difficult time immigrating to the United States. And it was the same situation that you just explained, where there was time periods where they had to go back to China for lengthy periods of time because of the immigration status and the length of time that it took for them to gain naturalized citizen status. So I feel that absolutely, and I understand this is a extremely broken system.
And the way to fix that, though, is to not ignore other
Right.
wrongdoings and incite further wrongdoings as a consequence. That's not a solution.
And to open the floodgates.
That's like saying, I have a paper cut on this hand. In order to fix it, let me go ahead and burn my leg intentionally. So that way, that's so nonsensical. I can't finish that joke, but so is equally nonsensical the way that we are conducting business as a government.
And we do have to figure that out. That is something that I think that bipartisan we can look at and say the immigration system has to be improved in the United States. And that's going to come down to something that starts at the states. We in Connecticut have not only achieved sanctuary state status, but there were cities for decades that have been sanctuary cities. And one of the major concerns about the opposition is that this affects due process. But if it's somebody who's already come in here and committed a crime, there's been plenty of instances where Connecticut Democrats have disregarded due process in passing legislation. And I'll give you one example, and that's with the red flag laws, where if one spouse says that another spouse has committed an act of domestic violence without any due process, that person who that domestic violence has been committed against or has been accused against can, if they have a pistol permit, lose any firearms that they have. They could have a revocation of their pistol permit. They could be incarcerated if they feel that there is a significant threat without any due process. So Connecticut Democrats are fine disregarding due process in other circumstances, but when it comes to protecting criminals in our communities that are
non-citizens,
here illegally,
if you don't like the word criminal, how about this non-citizen? How about that? They are favoring non-citizens instead of citizens. That simple.
Very good. So we are at the top of the hour now, 4 o'clock. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Right Now with Chris Reddy, my special guests, Wyatt Poehler and George Austin. This has been our Thursday, February 5th episode here on WILI.com, 95.3 FM.